So, a new batch of Ninjago mini-movies have been released for Legacy coming next year, and I have some things to say about them. Now, this is going to work as a sort of springboard into something I've been wanting to talk about for quite a long time now. If you remember back to my Hunted coverage, I said something about, I made a reference to Pulp Fiction in terms of something that Tommy Andreasen said in an interview with Brett Miller about Ninjago's canon and non-linearity. I understand that maybe might not have made so much sense to people, but today I want to explain this. I want to talk about the canon of Ninjago, and I just want to wrap this around into and bring some proper light onto what these mini-movies actually are in relation to March of the Oni. So, yeah, let's get into this. First up on the chopping block, we have Ninjago and non-linearity. Right, so to explain this, I think it's quite simple. Now, a narrative is broken down into segments of plot, story, and continuity, basically. That's the general gist of it. There's not the exact terms. But really, when you look at a narrative, when you look at something, you have to think of chronological order, you have to think of continuity, you have to think of the plot itself, and story elements. And they all wrap around is narrative. That is the general definition of narrative. Basically, back in the old Hollywood days, everything was very cookie-cutter. It was all cut and dry. There was a formula for movies. Basically, most movies fell into the Todd and Proudhon theory of narrative equilibrium as well as narrative archetypes. And it fit basically all narratives ever told in movies up until the French New Wave of filmmaking, which started experimentation of film, which is basically defined under cutting away from the general stereotypes and archetypes of a narrative production. And that's a very, very abridged overview of the general understanding of narrative. If you are still having trouble, think of narrative as the culmination of plot elements, story, and also chronological order. That's the best way to explain it. A narrative is the culmination of all these aspects. When a plot takes place, it depends on editing, on writer's intent. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. It's a bit more complicated than I think I can parrot out here. If you're interested, look up Svetsson Todorov and Vladimir Prop. I'm going to throw up my notes, very basic notes I made a few months ago. Those are the sort of basic elements it all boils down into. Now, with that all said, we can now move on to the actual topic of today. Non-linearity within Ninjago. Now, these mini-movies are a perfect example of what I think he meant. Now, of course, that's in a narrative, that's in a specific film, or a production. Now, what I think Tommy was referring to when he said that was basically what we Ninjago fans have come to dub the inconsistency factor, I think, is the best way to explain how, basically, after the writers entered the Twitter sphere, if I can call it that, we as fans started pressing them on a lot of issues, on a lot of things. And before joining, they obviously had no real understanding that people were this interested in Ninjago, and that people cared this much. But to get all of these questions and people taking so many good looks at what they're creating, that eventually we do know that Tommy kind of realized that he had something on his hands here and started paying attention to it a little bit more than I think he might have been beforehand. He's apparently compiled all of the canon into a book, but we don't know about it. And the Hagmans before, or the Hagemans, again, I pronounced it last time, someone told me that's how you say the name. I don't know, I'm going to keep saying Hagemans now, because that was easier before. And they basically said that everything in the TV show is canon. There are some outliers that are a bit confusing. Now, the original mini-movies, I believe, are also canon, and I also believe that some other little bits have been canon along the way, but I can't think of many good examples. I can think of what's not canon. Those Chen Ping Pong and other shorts were not canon. The Tea Shop thing wasn't canon, I don't think, and neither were basically a lot of other things. Now, when it comes down to these legacy ones, you basically have to look at it from the perspective of marketing, and that's exactly what these are. There's a difference. Now, I'm going to compare the pilots in a second, because they're obviously very much taking from this, and there are some other elements I want to talk about the trailers themselves, or the mini-movies themselves, which basically were just trailers for the Lego set, let's be real here. And basically, I think that sums it up, what I just said there. They were basically just little advertisements for the sets, and this is where I think his whole non-linearity argument comes into play very well. And I think this is where I will agree. I do not agree that Ninjago is incredibly non-linear, and that the narrative is all over the place, and we don't know, because basically Ninjago hasn't been structured like that. It's not Pulp Fiction, to make that reference again. At least timeline-wise, that's not a point of contention. Temporally, it is on a chronological path that we get explained to later on, but we've never gone back in time to a different era. So everything that is explained to us needs to be explained to us, basically, is what I'm saying here, is that they can't really just pull that excuse and then just run off. Because we need to know. Just because they know doesn't mean we know. And just because they're going to explain it one day doesn't mean it makes sense. It will make sense in the context that they even introduced at that point. There are some things you have to build up on the ground level. You can't just build up to make a Lego example, you can't just stack bricks on top of each other and expect it to hold up. You have to build an actual wall, right? Now, obviously, all that being said, one thing that does pop out to you immediately when you watch these little mini-movies is that they are basically commercials, right? They are for the Lego sets, and if you remember back in 2011, that was not what the mini-movies then were. You see, there's a big difference now between these ones and those ones before, and I think that's because of Lego generally being like, oh hey, we need more marketing for this, can you create some stuff? I think that it does speak a lot to the time that we live in, that nowadays, back in 2011, they created mini-movies that were basically working in the same general idea of giving more content, but doing it in a way that could be advertised. But also, the writers didn't turn those into set commercials. Like, you obviously had bits and bits of stuff that were like, oh hey, go buy the elemental dragons, here they all are racing against each other. Oh, what's this? Garmadon in the underworld. Wow, you need to go buy Garmadon's Dark Fortress now. Oh my goodness, what's this? Is this the monastery? Is that the fire temple? Etc, etc. But it wasn't in the same sense as, oh hey, remember my Stormfighter? Yes, go and buy the new Stormfighter set, released for LEGO Ninjago in 2019. Or, oh, look at this set. Oh, isn't it the Earth Driller? Wow, he's going to Cryptarian prison to fight the big stone warrior that fell in the void. But no, he's in Cryptarian prison now. Oh, and look, he's wearing his normal clothes. Isn't this wonderful, guys? Can't you go buy this Lego set? Oh, goodness sake. There's that old samurai mech. That was clunky. It was bad. It was badly made. I think, no. No. I want to make it like this now. And I'm going to fight all of the Whiplashes. Because no other skull can exist. And then we come to the Ultra Dragon one. The Ultra Dragon one's interesting. I'm very torn on it. I actually really like this one because it gives us a plot point and it doesn't shove the Ultra Dragon and Golden Dragon in your face. And I think that almost is really strange because out of all of these ones to explain, I think that one was the one that they should have explained the most. Now, I think the gist of this is that this flashback or this dream took place back between Rebooted and Season 2. Now, there is a minor inconsistency here in that Rebooted got a reference to the Ultra Dragon, but I think what this could mean is that it was let go at that point, and we didn't see it again, and the kid didn't realise that they'd let it go, or Lloyd let it go. And that makes sense, it makes sense to me. My issues with this lie in the fact that it's all reused stuff. None of it's been reused from the previous days. It's all new stuff from Sons of Garmadon. That same village that they went to that isn't Germanikai village. That just all of these weird things, and also the only Serpentine with Venomari because toys, because we need to sell the toys. And that's, I think, a big issue I have with it, but it fills into that non-linearity role because you have to sort of make your own positioned and active response to it, because it doesn't make any sense that Lloyd has golden power now and that he's flying around with a dragon, but also another dragon. And I think that was probably the best thing they did. That does fit into that non-linear storytelling style model, but it also, in the same sense, and I know I'm saying this a lot, but it's also a bit flawed in the sense that in the first one, there was a teaser for him having his golden power back, but in this, it's shown that no, this is actually just taking place between Rebooted and Season 2. So, what's going on there? Obviously, that is something up to interpretation, and maybe you see something different in there. It does make sense to a lot of the plot elements in that mini-movie. I'm going to continue to think of it that way. But on the other flip side, what was the point of doing this? The Henchmans confirmed it dead. It was under the Iron Baron's throne. Why would you bring it back at this point after you just confirmed it dead? I honestly feel a bit insulted. The fact that they didn't explain it, it showed up dead, and they're like, oh, the fans kind of like that one. Here's how it happened. And then it was all happy that he was in the first round with the first book. What? He died! I'm sorry, this isn't some fairy tale ending. The Ultra Dragon died. It's dead. It was under the Iron Baron's throne. It's still depressing to me to say. I can't sit here and say, wonderful. There you go, you've given me the backstory, now I'm happy. No, I don't like it being dead. You didn't need to kill it. It didn't need to die. There was no reason for that. You didn't need to bring it back either. Just give it a cameo in the first round, but don't kill it. Just, why would you kill it? Why would you kill the Ultra Dragon? What did it ever do? I feel so bad. I honestly don't like this. It doesn't make me feel good. I know that they say kill the one in the story that you love, but it wasn't even love through any story built up fashion. New kids wouldn't really care. It's just a cool dragon to them. But to us, these were the first dragons, and you've just murdered them. You've murdered them and put them in the Eye of Iron stew, and then thrown their bones underneath his throne. Okay, this video is too long. Okay, I'm gonna make a part 2 talking about the canon entirely at some point. But just real quick, the canon is all in Big Tommy's, Tommy's big book, I assume, and he probably knows how this went down. These are obviously just adaptations of it, but I think the Ultra Dragon is very similar, very close to what it's supposed to be. But remember, these are product commercials. They are not the mini movies. They're not representable to the original ones. They were only minor commercials that came along with it being basically, you might as well just call the show a commercial if you're going to call the pilot ones a commercial. But these legacy ones are, no, they are completely for the advertisement. So that's really all I'm going to say. I am a little bit bummed out by the Skulkin being all the same kind, I think. They've done that before. They've done that quite a few times with different characters before, actually. And it's just a lack of care. And I don't like that kind of thing. Just put 2 seconds in. Oh, also one more thing about them. I think it might have just been an animation quirk, but Spitter, when he was electrocuted, turned into one of the Skulkin. Now, okay, when I first watched that one, I was like, oh, does that mean that the Skulkin with the weirder heads are actually Serpentine? I thought that might be a good explanation for it. And then, obviously the next one, they're all of them now. They're all like that now. So, I don't know, maybe that was the intention. Maybe that is true, or maybe that's not, and it was just a coincidence. It was just because they were too lazy to actually go find those old Skulkin models. Who knows? I don't know. But, yeah, that's... Also, they looked awful. I don't know if you saw that. The Skulkin, actually the way they were animated looked terrible. So, yeah, that's all I gotta say. Sorry this video wasn't very visually stimulating. I have a bit of an eye infection at the moment, and have had it for a couple of weeks now, which is why there haven't been any videos. But I couldn't sit by on this. I couldn't sit by on the only one before. A lot of Ninjago excitement coming out, so sorry this one isn't super well edited. I can barely look at the screen, so sorry.